Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Death Session 38. I have done a restart, which I've only done twice, and I probably should have done many times in the 38 attempts at making this engaging. But if you're trying to capture and be honest about what was caught on the camera, I plowed through, but not in any angry way. I was interrupted by not putting my phone on do not disturb, and so I didn't lose train of thought. I just wanted to deal with it, and then it was taking unnecessary time away from that, and I should know better. But I figured, let me start again. And then the reason you don't start again, because if you try to regurgitate something you said, then it becomes canned, and then it sounds like a shtick. And ultimately, I suppose that is what happens for professional speakers. They do eventually have to say the same shit, especially if it's in the realm of how the fuck is do not disturb not fucking keeping this fucking... I put this fucking thing on do not disturb. Now I gotta go fucking airplane mode. Motherfucker, I told this fucking phone to not be on fucking at all. Anyway, I think maybe because the screen timer of the going to sleep, it's too long, and once if it's open, it still interrupts. I don't fucking know. But now I'm pissed off. And it's nice to be reached out to, but it's probably a fucking Nutrafol fucking hair growth supplement texting me. Point being, I'm going to leave it in this time because I'm just not going back over. And I apologize if you were watching this and saying, why is this fucking guy addressing his phone when he's hoping I'm going to sit there and listen to him talk. But again, if you get to the point where people become publicly known, especially in the podcast space, which has literally become, I guess, what the talk show circuit used to be, and certainly like celebrities talking about the movie they're in, they're going to tell the same stories of we all got food poisoning, and or Tom Cruise does the stunts and I don't, so I'm like, let him have it, and you have these shticks and you do these junkets, and I don't want to do that, and that's why I don't tend to repeat or stop and start. But I did have a cool thing I was kind of riffing on, because I was talking about energy going into this thing. So like if you were in this room with me, or if you knew me, I am way pitched up. And I talked about this last week. But that is because to give the energy of just chilling out, you can do some things where I'm not waving my hands. I'm not angry. You see relaxation, but I am vocally and internally fired up. And that is sort of the performance energy or the life force that you take. But what if you have a laid back character, for example, like the Stephen Wright vibe on stage? That guy's got to concentrate really hard on his jokes because he's a one-line guy, and then he's got to keep the monotone. So that actually takes more energy than you think. Whereas a ranter, someone who spits it all out, gets it out, he just takes a pause, sips his beer, goes back into it, builds up again. But when you're trying to modulate and stay on an even keel, that's going to take some kind of at least concentration different than sort of quote unquote being yourself, which is what I'm trying to get going here. But the late great Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock on Star Trek, said that the hook for him playing the character and hopefully not making him boring was because his character was half Vulcan, half human. And the Vulcan part was the presenting that he was logical, and he was like, logic dictates, and he does that whole thing, and without making it boring, he said that he played it as if he were repressing swirling fiery emotions bubbling to the surface that he would then have to. So he was giving this internal push-pull, and that gave him at least what we could live with as a pretty vibrant character, even though he was, not as spazzed out as Shatner. And that's a pretty cool way to, find your hook into a character, whether day to day it was that. Eventually what happens is you find these sort of either processes or you do a lot of homework on these things. And then the quote is, do it all and then forget it. And then just be, and that's, the acting methodology that he's, probably referring to. And who knows, it could be a lot of reverse engineering, pumping up the process of, being grateful to be working and hitting your marks. A lot of, I wonder, but that's the cynic in me, and I am trying to excise, excise, not exorcise, but excise, I think is the verb, or exorcise, maybe. I don't fucking know why I'm turning this into vocabulary, but I am trying to rid that from my overarching reality. It's probably good to have some kernel of skepticism on being a victim of cons, but cynicism can also be an overcorrection, and I have to be an optimist to be at my age and still trying to sing for my supper, and to hope that I can show change in the way I've been conducting myself as of late. So I have to keep the optimist alive, and so that I'm going to give Leonard Nimoy a thumbs up on that he was his hook, and I cannot for the life of me remember where he said that, so you'd have to search it somehow with keywords to find out if he where he said that. But I did think that was a cool way in, and I imagine I would do something similar just to keep, and now I don't know if you've noticed, but you can tell now that I've gotten a little bit perturbed, and I've gotten, I was regurgitating the Leonard Nimoy story from memory instead of from wanting to talk to you. And now my energy has kind of gotten there, and I hope I haven't lost you. But so let's get back into the idea that we have to have performance energy. The only reason I bring that up is today I was doing a read through of my one-man show to get some sense of time, because I'm going to, I think on the 14th of June, I'm going to have a very casual reading with friends, and I want to make sure I am not belaboring their time more than an hour. And I was over. I had a lot of stops and starts because I was being texted. Again, I should remember to either disable that or not reply, but I stopped and started, and it was a stopwatch. And I don't know if I was reading quickly or slowly, but I think it'll go faster in an audience. That's always the way it was. I was in a band in high school. We came in second place in the Battle of the Bands. Thank you. It was 3 bands in the battle, so we all were going to get a medal. But we came in second place, and I knew we were going to lose. We were pretty good because we could play, and we were playing crazy stuff. But we did like Rush and The Police and all these songs I couldn't sing. I sang in the original key, but had to really screech to get to it. And we had a radio station from Z100. Was one of the DJs was a guest judge, or he was one of the judges for the Battle of the Bands, and that he said that your singer has a good voice, but he's way out of his range. So you could see me like screeching. And we did a song called "Spirit of the Radio" by Rush. And I mean, that thing was like, it was like the Chipmunks. It was so fast. I think we did it in under, like right around 3 minutes. And I think it's a 5-minute song. And I know that bands have to keep an eye on that. That's sometimes they have in-ear click tracks so that they stay, but things speed up live. And I'm pretty sure when I read and I'm nervous and I got audience, I think that yes, there'll be some pauses, hopefully for laughter and stuff that will slow it down. But the general pace of performing will make it faster. So if I'm slightly over an hour, then I'm sure it's going to be about an hour, though. I don't know I'm going to be able to shave that. And I don't know if I'm going to make any editorial decisions before this reading when I get some feedback. I'm going to leave that to them. And I have made a pretty cool list of questions. I'm going to need my glasses for this, but I have made a pretty good list of questions that I'm going to, because I've made the mistake, and this might be a good bit of, what's the word? A good bit of learned experience stuff that I've developed from trial and error with Q&As. And most of the time, if you have the balls, you should just say, well, thanks for listening, and that really helped me out, and bye. But most of the time, you are soliciting some kind of feedback, and it can become a free-for-all where people want to hear their own voices. So I have these questions, and I think I'm going to hand them out. Like, I'm going to say, thank you so much. I'm going to take a break. I'll bring in some refreshments or whatever. If you don't mind sticking around, and then I'm going to hand these fuckers out, or I can do it like with a moderator. But some of the questions are, does this work? Does this work as a first-person narrative? Meaning I'm saying, hi, I did this, I did that. Okay. Would a theatrical conceit, like it being a sermon or somebody's last words or a character the whole way around, make it work better for you? Which would then kind of change the whole point, but I'm hoping they say no, it works as a first-person narrative. But, if there's an idea that I could lay over it, so I could say a lot of these things through, if you were on I could put plane seats on stage, and it could be like you're talking to the person on a fucking 6-hour flight, something like that. Do the recollections go too far back in time? So I've had that kind of critique of certain things that I've read, a lot of memoirs. Like sometimes they go back too far for my taste. But, that may have something to do with my own recollection of my childhood, and I want to hear the good stuff where you're getting ass. You know what I'm saying? So I like things where you're on the cusp of the romance, or at least the conflict in your awakening sexuality. I think anything before that is a bit treacly for me, or just hard for me to relate to. So I have some of that stuff, and I want to know if I've started too soon, too far back, and the whole thing may be too far back. I'm going to have to live with that. When you get to be a certain age, some of the more vibrant stuff is in your, first 25 years, Where else? Does a cool title pop into your head as you're listening to this? Because I am still going back and forth, and I can give back the domain. I have a bad habit of buying domain names and paying for the registration of them on GoDaddy, and I have a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't used. The Eclectic Slide is something I own, theeclecticslide.com. I've been saving that because that'd be a good name for a podcast, or if you were going to do, some kind of mixed bag variety type of thing. I have The Funny Ranch, which is maybe getting to be a little bit old and out of date. There used to be the Bunny Ranch in Vegas, and I had an idea for a short where women said their favorite trait of a man was a sense of humor. And so the Funny Ranch, instead of being a bunny ranch, was going to be a bunch of stand-up comics at the foot of your bed doing piece of string, walks into a bar, and the women would be laying in the bed. So I kept the Funny Ranch, but I may sell that. And Live from the Tap Room is another one I have, because there's a million breweries out there, and I did a show in a tap room. And so I thought that might be something somebody might buy. And I bought We Carried the Light for this project, and it was available, so that made me think it was great. But then now I'm thinking of other marketable names and to preserve some of the theme. And today I had a funny idea for a title, which could be courting controversy, so we'll see if that is worth the grief that would come with it. But I want to call it non-toxic, and then call it a one-male show instead of a one-man show. To see if you could get the idea that I am presenting in a demographic that is probably has been overheard from, but I don't want to buy into that crap. And I also know that I come from a long line of non-toxic men. There's toxic men, and I want to fuck around with that, even if that notion even jives with reality. So anyway, calling it non-toxic, a one male show, is where I was thinking. So that would be a question. Does a cool title pop out as you heard the piece? Where did it drag would be the one sort of yikes I got to hear where that you dipped out. Maximum length, could it be longer? Does it need to be shorter? Hopefully it'll be under an hour. Any ideas? Here's the other one. Any ideas for a workaround for using the specific songs? So anyway, those are the things that I'm starting to prepare for for being able to do this reading and make it productive for me. And I have to be careful because I don't want to invite too many people that then wouldn't want to come to opening night and, those kind of things. So I'm at the point where I'm getting excited because having read through it and knowing that I have enough juice as a performer, I can make it interesting. And I know that at least 2 or 3 of the stories are stage worthy. They're story bits that I used to do on stage that were sort of go-to. They were second act stuff. When I knew the crowd was able to hear longer form stories, I could do these 2 bits. And I've improved them, I think, because I've put them in more of a context. And I've given them, a little bit more of a storytelling vibe. So that's where I'm at. And so now I'm feeling, and I'm sure this will go like this, but now I just got to get comfortable enough to know that, that I'm not misinterpreting my own words and missing commas. Here's a funny drama school story. I think I've already told this before, but we would have to do, for voice and speech, we'd have to do these speeches and we'd all have to do the same one, or we got to pick 2, or we got to pick, and they were all oftentimes like they were the chorus speeches. So Henry V chorus speeches are really cool, and I think they picked those because Henry V is the Kenneth Branagh one, came out around that time. It's the younger. It's like the rock and roll Shakespeare one to get young men excited about. It has the St. Crispin's Day speech, which is. Man, I could go right now. Oh, man, you see me? You see me? For he today who sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Man, St. Crispin's Day speech is Memorial Day. Unfortunately, people forget it's not the same as Veterans Day. And what it signifies is loss. And so St. Crispin's Day just came to my head today because I'm talking about it, which is not a coincidence if you believe in channeling. But so yeah, Henry V has St. Crispin's Day speech, but they have these great chorus speeches. And so as a voice of speech midterm or a final presentation, we had to go on the big stage, the main stage, and everybody one at a time had to go and do one of the 2 speeches, or maybe we were all doing the one, but it starts with, "Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention," right? And everybody would do that. And 2 things happened. If somebody went up there and boofed it, everybody boofed it. It was like this contagion of blanking. And, you're up there like, I'm going to get a D on this thing because I couldn't get through it, and then it was a contagion. Everybody, I thought I knew this shit. We've been working on it literally for 2 months, the same speech over and over, and we would boof it, and then you would get through it, but you would be so shaky. But there was some people were just, you knew they were last minute, maybe they were quick studies, but they didn't get it. And maybe there was too much being left to our own devices for interpretation on this. So there was, and within this wooden O, the very lusty fields of France, meaning this wooden O being the old Globe Theater. It was circular in nature, and that's where they had the tiers. And the groundlings, oddly enough, groundlings were considered the shitty seats. Were on the ground, the groundlings, and they were looking up at the stage. Those would now actually be considered orchestra seats. But the higher tiers are for the upper classes, or the people who didn't want to get mud on their shoes or whatever the fuck. And that's my buddy recently reminded me that break a leg comes from like breaking off legs of chairs because it was so good. And so you're telling someone to do so well, they'll break the furniture, or they'll laugh so hard that something will break a leg of a chair, not your slipping and falling, which is what I thought it was, which was like courting the worst by saying break a leg. That's not what it means. But so someone would say and what they would say is, within this wooden O, the very lusty fields of France. So it's I think it's the Battle of Agincourt, and Henry V is English, and he's going against the French, and the poor condemned English. They're outnumbered 4-1, blah, and he's got these speeches, and then it ends with a little touch of Harry in the night. So Prince Harry is what Henry, and he was so inspirational in the St. Crispin's Day that they win with a 3-1 or 2-1, whatever the fuck it is. The French were supposed to fuck them up. So this is why people like that one for a youthful thing. And the chorus's speeches are really cool. But within this wooden O, the very lusty fields of France. So the wooden O, within this theater I describe, and that's kind of what I'm doing with my show, is like I'm describing things. And the cool thing about those chorus speeches is that could be considered direct communication with the audience and explaining to you that this is a show that we're going to hearken back to when we get back to the action of the play. So the chorus is literally like a narrator. And with a one male show, you got to do that for all of it. And within that wooden O, meaning the Black Box Theater or wherever I am, within that wooden O is going to be the life and times of Carl D or whatever I'm trying to get across. But within this wooden O, the very lusty fields of France. I think I've told this story before, but it cracks me up as only a drama nerd can be cracked up. But what would happen if somebody went up there and said, within this wooden, oh, the very lusty fields of France, because you're also told to circle the O's, O-H, or O. They mean different things, I think. I think O, a capital O is like O. And then there's syllable ramifications with the iambic pentameter. But this is the one time in the whole fucking thing that the O literally means like a circle O. And not like an exclamation of "oh!" So when somebody went up there and said, "And within this wooden, like wooden as a noun, within this wooden period, oh, the very lusty," like, and it would crack us up that people would butcher that shit. And so, I say that now. I got to remember. I say that to say I have to read this through because I'm not going to try to be off book for this casual reading, but I have to be familiar enough with it that I don't have a misinterpretation of my own shit that I wrote because I haven't memorized it. But like, you don't want to have, oh, the very lusty fields of France when it's within this wooden O. So you have to know where the pauses are. And that was a little bit of the rewriting. I threw some commas, I threw some hyphens so that I would make sure I don't motorboard my own fucking words and lose clarity, because that's going to be the biggest issue for the read through, is if I'm holding attention and if the through lines work. So that's something I did today. And, just sort of, trying to be proactive with this. I have one more month before I'm sort of cleared for all duties with my ankle. And, that gives me some excitement and some fear. It's another month, without work. So can I change direction in a month? Can I have a good time and maybe do that for myself? Just enjoy the downtime. It's dawned on me I haven't been out of like a job since childhood, or since college. And that also kind of comes back to why I think I write these stories. Because, you want to get through the past, right? You want to put the past in the past. So talking about the past as stories, but I think some may call it revisionist history, but I think if you can, the practice of gratitude has to come from acknowledging the slights and the little things that made you feel sad, mad, or glad in the past, that if they are above whatever the Mendoza line of abject tragedy and harsh living, war, famine, if it's above all that, it's really small potatoes in terms of big T trauma, I suppose. But rather than knock myself for not having, a trauma narrative to circulate, which is, I think, is a lot of what memoirs can become. I think if I can exclaim that I was a sensitive person who took these things too hard, and the worst damage is between the two ears, and attitude and mindset. If those are the biggest damages you can do to yourself, other than the big one, if you can really damage yourself between the ears, or in the spirit, that being able to tell those stories, but also remember that there's a quaintness to them, and they were survived, and that's why I think I tell these stories, and hopefully I can tell more as time goes on. And I also have to remember to be a singles hitter, maybe a double, triple, home runs I don't have to make this the last one I do, so it can be an ongoing, hopefully and mercifully and blessedly, it can be an ongoing dialogue with whoever I can ever get to see these things, listen to this stuff, participate in what I'm laying down. If I get to tell another one, then it will update, and I don't have to tell every deep dark thing. I don't have to, this is all voluntary. This is all a selective process, and maybe one day I will do a Mark Twain-y type of thing. I don't know. Hopefully I can get off the one man thing, because I'm doing this just because I know how difficult it is to get these things off the ground, and the portability of a solo show is really why I'm doing this. And I have stripped out a lot of gimmicky things that would require lights and change. Like, all I need is a light up and a light down and some sound, and I think you can almost do that. You could do that anywhere with a computer, and even an iPhone could run a show with the Q to Q and all that. So hopefully within that wooden wherever it'll be, maybe it'll be a wooden square or a wooden triangle. Maybe this would be good in the round. Who knows? I'm just looking forward to putting it out in space, and it's the first time I've bolstered my emotional core to be like, I'm fired up about this, instead of I'm going to be embarrassed. And maybe it's just reading it out loud and vibing and starting to put a little wind in my sails about the material. At very least is structured, and at very least means something to me. So that would be why I'm fired up, and trying to put some self-talk of encouragement, and I guess with the energy, it's too easy for me lately, to be honest, is as macro as my overarching improvement is, I still, in the micro, am flummoxed by details of day-to-day living that frustrate me, i.e. a road rage, or the engine light going off again on my fucking car. Like, these things are I do catastrophize and do bug out about them, and I suppose the fuse is shorter, or it's a smaller bang, it's a firecracker instead of an M80, but that doesn't mean I still want to have explosions, and maybe that just comes from a little bit of isolation, or too much time to think, or what might have you. But I am enjoying the freedom of an introspective life and a quieter thing. If you notice, I'm not wearing the cans because there's quiet in the building, and I prefer to be out of the cans because I just like to hear the room I'm in, the room where it happened, and so I am not vibing on those right now. So I'm taking some of the peace and quiet and some of the blessings of peace and quiet and a place to lay your head. All these things are part of this gratitude that I have for being able to manage, and I want to do more than manage. I think we all want to do more than manage, but I really think the illusion of public life is really been hard for me to grasp or not be affected by. It has nothing to do with me. I don't know these people. I don't know them. I don't know them. I may not like them. They may not like me. Some of them that I don't like may be closer to soulmates than I'd ever imagine, and it's just that I don't like their songs or their movies. It's all matters of taste, and I guess that's the illusion of putting things out in the public. I thankfully, and probably the hardest thing to be grateful for, is that I'm not famous, because of where I was at in many parts of my life, and maybe still am, that who's to say I would handle, with my temper, who's to say I'd handle things any better? And then everybody would think something about me that wouldn't be true, or, so people don't really know you. And that's a two-way street, and it's something to be thankful for. Now, I'd like to be known for my work, and hopefully I will be, and they still won't know me. And even if these were all watched in some binge, and it's pretty intimate because it's just me talking in my environment, you still might not know me. And so, and I think that's a good thing. And that was the hardest thing, and that would show you where somewhere along the line a wire got crossed, that you needed to be known to strangers when you're lucky to be known by your intimates, and that anybody you take into your heart or sphere, it should be a give and take, and those are blessed things. And so, which is why, if we're going to get a bit maudlin and a little bit on theme for Memorial Day, which is why those are, in my estimation, too big a sacrifice for any family to have to make. And I can't imagine, I can't imagine. And it's too big a price to ask. So I would hope we could move forward knowing that we shouldn't ask that again. But I'm not in that position to make that decision. I'll try to make it in my life where I am not going to war, man, unless, and I don't mean war in the macro. I mean there's a time and there's a place. And I want my life to be about ideas, communicating, getting stuff out there, helping people get shit done, getting stuff done for myself, making deadlines, having fun, cooking food, eating good food, and just being a lucky mother effer, and knowing that on a day where we celebrate loss, we celebrate what they laid down for. And I don't know much more to say about that, but anybody who's really celebrating, and the word ain't celebrating, anyone else who's really, anyone who's got a memorial for a soldier during this weekend, thank you for your sacrifice. And it is more than I could bear. I could tell you that right now, more than I could ever bear. So my heart goes out to you, and I think I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry to be somber, but hey, I'm going to be reading my show. I will be back here before I do that, but we are getting close to finally the desk session being about what it started out to be, which is the progress. And so I can't wait to keep getting closer to that date and turn that anxiety into enthusiasm. And that's what we're going to be dealing with for the next couple weeks. All right. Peace. Carl D out.